Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Paul Brown Show. This evening, my guest will be Prophetess Andrea Swingler.
Yes, thank you.
How you doing, ma'am?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great.
Wonderful.
Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, as far as drugs is concerned, I was on drugs for about, I say almost 18 years.
Okay.
And then started at a very early age, and for about 18 years, and then I finally turned my life over to Jesus, and he delivered me from the bondage of drug addiction. And out of that, I became a substance abuse counselor.
Okay. How long have you been a counselor?
Oh, I've been in this field since 2003.
Three?
I got a degree in mental health assistant and substance abuse.
Okay. Well, for some of our audience, as far as knowledge, is a drug addiction, is that a disease?
Well, according to some clinicians, and the old concept was that drug addiction was a disease, but now they're saying it's a brain disease, meaning that the brain has become adapted to the substances. So now they're saying the brain disease, but I'm a little controversy. I've been in the field for almost 14 or 15 years,
Okay.
and drug addiction is, to me, one, it's a learned behavior. Okay, if you come in out of a family or environment and that's all they did, you'll be able to pick up the same behaviors. It also has environmental factors involved. If you're living in a community and that's all you see is drugs and alcohol,
Correct.
That can play a part in it. A lot of times living in low-impoverished communities, depression and not having enough money to pay your bills. And so a lot of times people will turn to drug addiction. So it does have environmental factors. It's a learned behavior, but it also can be genetic to a certain
Okay.
extent.
Why do you say that? Genetic, hereditary.
Hereditary.
Correct.
I say now, as far as science is concerned, they're trying to say that it's in the gene. For example, I have one daughter.
Okay.
And when I did drugs, they're saying that gene passed to her, but she don't do drugs, But not everybody. But she wasn't in the environment that much because I
Okay.
was sent her away to my grandmother's, and I just did my thing. And then when she turned 12, then I got myself together and got her back. But they think that it's genetics. Now, from a spiritual point of view, I say it's inherent as far as learned behavior. You come out of a family and that's all they do. The cousins, the aunts, the uncles, everybody doing drugs. So when a child is born and he's raised in that environment, you inherit those certain things.
Correct.
So far as it being in the gene, I'm kind of, I don't believe that too much. I believe that there can be a transfer of bad behaviors. You can inherit bad behaviors.
Okay. For yourself, Prophetess Swingler,
Yes.
I guess some of the audience would like to know what made you start using and what would possibly be a
Yes.
drug of choice.
Yes, my drug of choice was cocaine, alcohol, all kinds of downers.
Okay.
I done tried marijuana, LSD, and all that, but my main thing around in my 20s was cocaine. I was a cocaine addicted to cocaine.
Okay.
That was the biggest thing, and pills, any kind of downers. And so what made me start using it, I had around age 12, I started experimenting with, alcohol, and then at age 14, peer pressure, and then I found out it can change how I felt. It can change my mood, just different issues that led me into that. I didn't know my purpose. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how much God loved me. I didn't have affirmation. I didn't have no one telling me, I can do this, I can do that. My mother, although she always read the Bible, very seldom did she go to church, but she's till this day, she's in church now. She stayed in the Bible, and she taught us about the Bible. But but there's some things she just didn't know, like confirming and affirming the child. So I didn't have that. And so when a child is born and they grow up in adolescence and teenager years, they're trying to find their identity. They're trying to find purpose. The brain does not develop until you're at least 25 years old. And so during that process for a child, it's very difficult. You got peer pressure, you got the environment, and I was raised in an environment where that's all they did. That's all I saw. And I dreaded, and I hated to even come home from school to pass through the community.
Okay.
And then I said, you know what? I might as well just join them. This is how it is. This is life. And that's how I ended up on drugs. And it was a vicious cycle for literally 18 years.
So how did your family, I know because probably not all your family was using drugs, so the ones that didn't, how did they perceive you? You know what I'm saying? Knowing that, and how did they?
I was the black sheep because I was the oldest child.
Okay.
And so I was the black sheep. I was, they couldn't understand when I was a teenager why I was doing what I was doing.
Correct.
And I didn't know, And so it just was a vicious cycle, and they kind of had to, because anytime you're addicted in the family, sometimes the family members you can become an enabler.
Correct.
And all of that. So, I had my grandmother at the time, and she was a big enabler. I can get money from her, whatever I wanted, I literally financially abused her. And so, but then it came a time where they cut me off, So sometimes when you come out of a family and the family members are not doing it,
Correct.
Sometimes they have to intervention and cut you off.
When you were out there in addiction, did you feel like no one knew you was getting high using drugs? Because I know a lot of people, when they're in addiction, they don't feel like they think that they're normal, but you can really look at them and tell they're doing something.
Right.
I mean,
they call themselves sneaking, early. Yeah, early on. Sometimes when you first start, you kind of hide, you kind of sneak.
Correct.
But as the addiction progresses, then you just out there. You can't hide it no more.
Correct.
And so yes, early on, a lot of addicts and alcoholics, they will try to hide the addiction.
Okay. Knowing that, what do you see yourself as for today? I know as a counselor, when you see people that's coming in, what kind of advice do you give them? I mean, because this is something that is really controlling, and it's like, that's not really, it's the drug that's causing them to do what they're doing.
Absolutely. Even though, because all the behavior is going to have consequences.
Correct.
So in the field, when you're counseling and holding groups for people who are on drugs and alcohol, most counselors are been there themselves.
Okay.
And the addict or the alcoholic will tell you, if you ain't been through it, you can't tell me anything. And they'll challenge you. They'll ask you personal questions. Are you in recovery? Do you go to AA meetings, or do you go to church? Because most people who get delivered from drugs and alcohol, they have certain support groups. A lot of people, I came through the church. I went through the AA meetings, but after 2 years, I needed more than that.
Correct.
So when you're dealing with these type of people, you have to know their where they are in their addiction. Most of them are going to be in denial. Some of them going to tell you, I know I'm an addict. I know I'm an alcoholic, And so you have to deal with them. We have treatment models. You deal with them on where they are.
Okay.
Okay,
as far as, in my opinion, I think you're one of the chosen one. And the reason why I say you are one of the chosen, there's a lot of people that have went through addiction and they didn't make it. So
oh my God.
Why did you feel you were a chosen one? Because God has something for your life. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause
Wow.
there's plenty of people out there that has traveled your path and didn't come through.
You know what, Brother Brown?
We're getting deep now. We're getting deep now.
That's deep. That's very deep. And that's what I didn't know. that I was called. Now, many are called, and very few are chosen.
Correct.
Not that God, oh, I'm just going to call these group of people and leave in the rest. Many are called. He calls everyone, but only few are going to answer.
Correct.
And those are the chosen. Those are the ones that have been predestinated. And so I didn't know it. And so that's why I was out there. I didn't know God.
Correct.
I mean, I always prayed. My thing with God was, Lord, let me do what I'm going to do. And we all right. But you still be God and just let me do. And I really thought I had it like that with God. I would tell people, oh, me and God, all right. He let me do what I want to do. But I didn't know that until I got off the drugs, and until he started calling me and helping me to stay clean one day at a time. Then I started realizing my purpose, and I realized that he had a purpose for me. And out of that, I wrote a book about drugs and alcohol. Actually, this is my second book.
All right. So what inspired you to write the book? And you know what I'm saying? Because
Yes.
I noticed something that only you can tell why.
Right.
So what was the purpose of writing your book?
The purpose of writing the first book I wrote was a Christian training manual for drug addiction outreach programs.
Okay.
And at that time, I was part of a local church in New York, Buffalo, New York, and they knew I came off of drugs, and they wanted me to have some type of support group with women who were coming off of drugs. So I put together a little outline, a manual, and things like that. And the Lord began speaking with me. I had 14 years clean at the time. Now I have about 25 years. He said it was so clear. He said if I do not grasp the understanding, the spiritual aspect of drug addiction, he said I can easily relapse. That
Correct.
means go back. I said, Lord, what are you talking about? And so he began taking me on a journey in 2006 about drugs from a spiritual perspective.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, I literally was involved in witchcraft, and things like that, and he spoke to me, and you might not believe this, but he said, you was a witch. I said, what? He said, a witch, because I was in that realm.
Okay.
Anytime you use drugs, you get in a certain realm where you see demonic manifestations.
That's
I was there.
correct. I mean, when you see new people coming into treatment, how does that make you feel, knowing that this individual's trying to make it?
It lets me know that they can make it, and I just rejoice, But then it's the process, because they come in, they either come in because of family members, they come in because of boyfriend or girlfriend, they come in because of the legal system. There's different reasons why they come in, And so whatever the reason is, we have to take them through the process and break through certain barriers that that we can get them to the place where they really accept they have a problem.
Okay, well, we're going to take a break, Prophetess. We're going to take a break, ladies and gentlemen, and we will be right back on the Paul Brown Show. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul Brown, and I have my guest, Prophetess Andrea Swingler,
Yes.
and she's talking about addiction. When people want to contact you, how do they go about contacting you?
They can contact me at aswingler9@gmail.com, or the Life Recovery Center, and liferecoverycenters.org is the website, because we also deal with women who are coming off drugs and alcohol, and we're in the process of trying to get a supportive housing. They can also go on Amazon.com and get the book, Understanding the Spirituality of Drug Addiction, and it's at Barnes & Nobles or wherever books are sold on the web.
So for family members that's out there watching the show who has family members that's out in addiction, what advice would you give them?
I would tell them to don't enable their family members, and see if they can do some type of intervention, see if they can get them in treatment, but don't force them, and just don't enable them, and just try to understand that it's not that easy for them. Just, you know, a lot of family members tell them, just stop. Why can't you stop?
Correct.
And it's not that easy. So, you know, if they can just pray for their family members who are addicted, and themselves going to
Correct.
need some type of counseling themselves.
Prophetess Swingler, thank you for coming on.